Welcome to Pallilo Points. I'm Brandon Stranger, Sports Map Houston. That's Charlie Pallilo. You can catch him on the Charlie Pallilo Show weekdays 10 a.m. to noon on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. If you haven't yet, please hit subscribe on this channel. We do appreciate the support. Hey, Charlie, the Texan season has mercifully concluded. The main thing that stands out to me in this 2021 season postmortem is the perception of the team. And with everything that has happened regarding this team, whether it be Jack Easterby, Nick Caserio, Deshaun Watson, David Culley, it's easy to lose sight, I think, of some positives. And there were two big ones. The Texans will draft in the top 3, and Davis Mills turned out to be an okay quarterback. Where are you with Davis Mills' development, especially considering the lack of competent coaching around him?
Mixed bag, but for a guy who was taken in the 3rd round, who had never played a full season's worth of college games, while at Stanford, you can say there was progress. He did not look hopelessly overmatched. You don't look at his tools and go, what are you doing, wasting time with this guy? No anointing should take place, that he's definitely the quarterback of the future beyond the near-term future. Not buying that. That 3 of his 4 300-yard passing games came in losses, 2 of them in blowout losses where you're facing soft defenses happy to let you nickel dime your way down the field. So grains of salt with that stuff. But it at least should completely eradicate any notion of the Texans forcing it, talking themselves into Kenny Pickett or Matt Corral with a high first-round draft choice when there's certainly no quarterback considered by anybody top 5 worthy in the 2022 draft class. The Texans are probably, right, it is a league of turnarounds, but they're probably going to stink again next season. And if Davis Mills plateaus, stagnates, regresses, well, the class of 2023 draftable quarterbacks looms as much better, headed by Bryce Young, Alabama, C.J. Stroud, Ohio State, so that whether they are happy with Mills and just maybe, even if it's a ceiling of a Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield type guy, a legit starting NFL quarterback, someone you're hoping to rise above eventually, but to go with him for another year, no one should have any beef with that.
I think, what we lose sight of is the fact, especially considering that he's following Deshaun Watson, who's this incredible dynamic quarterback. But what's interesting is we pulled some comps for this conversation that we thought were interesting. First one, David Carr's first season, 9 touchdowns, 15 interceptions in 16 games. Matt Schaub's first season, 9 touchdowns, 9 interceptions in 11 games. Matt Schaub's second season, 15 touchdowns, 10 interceptions in 11 games. Trevor Lawrence, who was the darling of the NFL draft, 12 touchdowns, 17 interceptions in 17 games. Now compare that to Davis Mills, 16 touchdowns, 10 interceptions in 11 games. So for a 3rd-round quarterback, considering like you said, there aren't any must-draft quarterbacks projected high in this year's draft, Nick Caserio, you could make the argument, got it right with Mills, at least in the short term. Maybe he turns into a really valuable backup quarterback a la Matt Schaub. But how surprised are you to hear at least someone posit that at the end of the season that's not employed by a Texan?
Well, any port in a storm, and it was a 3rd-round draft choice, which isn't a throwaway, but it's also not $37 million guaranteed, a la Brock Osweiler. I don't think anyone watched Davis Mills and thought, geez, this is Brian Hoyer 2, or, Ryan Mallett with a better attitude. Right? He did not look like a fish out of water on an NFL field, though he was the quarterback of a whole bunch of blowout losses. I mean, the Texans lost more games by 15 or more points this season than the 0-16 Lions did, than the 0-16 Browns did. So when you're only playing a 17 game schedule, statistics can get skewed more by a couple of really good or really bad performances than over 82 NBA games or over 162 baseball games. But if it's a pass-fail course, Davis Mills passes as a rookie. I mean, they shouldn't be doing any back-patting of themselves. That he was better than Zach Wilson. Well, Zach Wilson was a disaster. Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars, it's just a dysfunctional organization, and it almost makes the Texans look competent. Justin Fields is a mess in Chicago. We're talking about pretty low water, so to have the highest boat there, but it is something, and he could legitimately be a competent starter. That he's going to be the 3rd rounder that Russell Wilson turned out to be? No. that Dak Prescott at this point as a mid-round draft choice is. What Dak Prescott is extraordinarily overpaid. The Texans have Davis Mills for peanuts for another 3 full seasons that if he is all right, whether it's as a bridge guy or continues to evolve, yes, the Texans have a lengthy list of things for which they are rightfully subject to withering criticism and derision. Nick Caserio and Davis Mills are not two of those things, at least limited to Caserio's case, to the selection of Davis Mills in the 3rd round.
Well, we started off this conversation saying there were 2 positives, the draft status being one. So let's get into that a little bit because the Texans have lots of needs: pass rush, O-line, running game, to name 3 important ones. Which upgrade or an upgrade at which position do you think will benefit Davis Mills the most meaningfully in his development?
Well, as we all await the final play out on Deshaun Watson, the next name in the dump some salary sweepstakes is Laramie Tunsil, who's a very good player, but he's not a super duper star left tackle. He's paid like one. Still would have trade value if you move off of Laramie Tunsil to accrue more draft capital or maybe a young player or two. Evan Neal, Alabama, is going to be everyone's number 1 O-lineman in this draft. To take him 3rd overall, right? It's not a sexy pick. It's not a guy who touches the ball and does exciting things with it. But as a fundamental building block piece, even if you keep Laramie Tunsil and Neal is on the right side, to have bookend tackles, what is Titus Howard's ultimate future here? Because of all those needs, pretty much across the board, the Texans go with draft cliche number 1, best player available. So if the 2 stud defensive ends, Hutchinson and Thibodeau, go 1-2, names that will be prominently bandied about here and elsewhere in that 3-4-5 range will include Neal at Alabama, Stingley, the cornerback, mixed reviews, LSU, Kyle Hamilton, a safety out of Notre Dame with Justin Reed probably moving on, and no one confused him with Ronnie Lott anyway. So best player available. I don't know if we're in trust in Nick mode, but that's how the hand is played. Best player available at number 3, or if someone's hot to trot for a safety, for that left tackle, you can trade down in the 1st round because the Texans need quality and they need quantity. You look at this roster, number 1, all the free agents to be on it, and all the free agents to be in other players that who cares if they're back? Or they have maybe a dozen players out of 53 that you'd say, okay, you definitely want him back, whether under control or you hope to re-sign a couple of their free agents. So they have holes galore to fill, and this is the first draft where Caserio plays a full hand trying to get cracking on it.
Now, definitely not trust in Nick mode, but certainly trust in Nick more than trust in Tim Kelly, who there's question marks around him. We've heard rumblings now that the Panthers may be interested in Pep Hamilton and bringing him over. How big of a loss would that be for the Texans? Again, considering the competency level of your OC and head coach at this point, how big of a loss would Pep Hamilton be?
I'm not going to call it quite a dream scenario, but let Bill O'Brien get the Jaguars job, have him in the division against the Texans for a few years, have him reunite with Tim Kelly and just make Pep Hamilton the offensive coordinator here rather than him go over to Carolina. He's very highly regarded. He hasn't run the show yet at the offensive level, so I don't think it's a devastating loss. But you know what? If you like him and you have some continuity and there's rapport between he and Davis Mills, rather than just starting year 2 with another entirely new offensive brain trust, let's stick with staff. Pep in his step, whether it's here or elsewhere, he's gonna come out ahead. There's just no reason Tim Kelly should be the offensive coordinator. Right? He was Bill O'Brien's right-hand man, under-resumed when he wasn't really in charge. Then he kind of was in charge. Then O'Brien took back the play calling. I hope Tim Kelly has a fine career, but at this point, it should be elsewhere.